He was sick and dying, abandoned and forgotten by his own children. His sons didn't visit for years, didn't call, didn't care. But the moment they found out he left $2.5 million to his caregiver, a woman who wasn't even family, they came back. Not to apologize, but to destroy the woman. Then the unimaginable happened. Hannah Brooks was 29 years old, working as a caregiver in a quiet town where people knew your name but rarely asked how you were doing. Her job was simple: help the elderly, the sick, the forgotten. She had cared for many before. Some were kind, some were difficult, but none of them prepared her for Henry Lawson. When she arrived at his house for the first time, she noticed how big and empty it felt. The walls were covered with old photos, smiling faces, family gatherings, happier times. But the man sitting in the wheelchair by the window looked nothing like the strong, proud person in those pictures. Henry was 78 years old. His hair was thin and white. His hands shook when he tried to hold his cup. A car accident 2 years earlier had stolen his strength, and his wife. She died that same night. He survived, but barely. His body was weak. His heart was broken. And his sons? They were nowhere to be found. Hannah had been warned before she took the job. He's difficult, the agency told her. He doesn't talk much. He pushes people away. But when she walked into that room and saw him staring out the window, lost in his own sadness, she didn't see a difficult man. She saw someone who had been left behind. "Good morning, Mr. Lawson," she said gently, setting her bag down. "My name is Hannah. I'll be taking care of you from now on." He didn't look at her. He just kept staring outside. She didn't mind. She had worked with people like this before, people who had given up on being seen. So she started small. She made him breakfast. She helped him get dressed. She spoke to him even when he didn't answer. Days passed. Then weeks. Henry barely said a word. But Hannah kept showing up. One morning, while helping him into his chair, she noticed a photo on the table. It showed two young boys standing beside a tall, strong man. Henry. Back when his life was full. "Are these your sons?" she asked softly. For the first time, he looked at her. His eyes were tired. "They used to be," he whispered. Hannah's heart sank. She didn't push. She just nodded and continued her work. But from that moment, she understood. Henry wasn't just struggling with his body. He was struggling with something much worse: abandonment. His sons had left him, not just physically, but emotionally. They stopped visiting, stopped calling. To them, he wasn't their father anymore. He was just a reminder of responsibility they didn't want. But Hannah refused to treat him that way. She began doing more than her job required. She sat with him during meals. She read him the newspaper. She asked about his life before the accident, about his work, his wife, the dreams he once had. Slowly, Henry began to respond. He told her about the business he built from nothing, about the woman he loved for 50 years, about the sons he raised, hoping they would carry his name with pride. "I thought I did everything right," he said one evening, his voice cracking. "But they don't even call anymore. It's like I'm already dead to them." Hannah reached over and placed her hand on his. "You're not dead, Mr. Lawson. You're right here. And I see you." Tears filled his eyes. He squeezed her hand back. From that day forward, something changed between them. It wasn't just caregiver and patient anymore. It was something deeper. Something real. Whenever Henry grew quiet and sad, sinking into the heavy silence of his loneliness, Hannah would lean close. She would gently kiss his forehead and whisper into his ear, "You matter. You are loved. You are not alone." And every single time, his breathing would steady. His shoulders would relax. He would look at her like she had just pulled him back from the edge of something dark. "You remind me of her," he said one night, speaking of his late wife. "Not in looks, but in heart." Hannah smiled. "Then she must have been a good woman." "The best," Henry whispered. Just like you. Months turned into a year. Then 2. Then 3. Hannah became more than his caregiver. She became his family. The daughter he never had but always deserved. And Henry. He became the father she had lost long ago. But while love was growing in that quiet house, something else was growing too. Something much darker. Henry's sons had stayed away for years. But now, they were starting to pay attention again. Not because they missed their father, but because they heard whispers, rumors, questions about the will. And when they finally learned the truth, when they discovered what their father had done, their anger turned into something dangerous. Because Henry Lawson had made a decision that would change everything. He had rewritten his will. And this time, his sons were no longer the heirs. Henry knew exactly what he was doing. He sat in his study one quiet afternoon, his lawyer across from him, papers spread out on the desk. His hands were still shaky, but his mind was clear, sharper than it had been in years. "Are you absolutely sure about this, Mr. Lawson?" the lawyer asked, his voice careful. "Your sons might challenge it. They could make things very difficult." Henry looked up. His eyes were calm, but firm. "Let them try. I'm not doing this out of anger. I'm doing it because it's right." The lawyer nodded slowly and began writing. Henry had thought about this for months. Every time Hannah stayed late to make sure he was comfortable. Every time she laughed at his old jokes that no one else found funny anymore. Every time she kissed his forehead and whispered those words that kept him alive, he knew. She was the one who truly cared. Not his sons. Not the people who shared his blood but abandoned his heart. Hannah. The woman who had no reason to love him, but did anyway. So he made his choice. Most of his estate, his house, his savings, his investments, would go to Hannah Brooks. She would receive $2.5 million. His sons would get only a small portion, just enough to avoid legal complaints. But the bulk of everything he had built over his lifetime, it belonged to her now. And there was one more thing. Henry added a special clause to the will. If anyone in his family harmed Hannah, physically, emotionally, or legally, they would lose everything. Every last cent would go to charity. It was his way of protecting her, even after he was gone. When the lawyer finished, Henry signed his name slowly but confidently. "It's done," the lawyer said, placing the papers in a folder. "This will is legally binding. No one can change it without your consent." Henry smiled for the first time in a long time. "Good. Because she deserves it. She's been more of a daughter to me than my own sons ever were." The lawyer left. Henry sat alone in his study, staring at the family photos on the wall. He felt no regret. Only peace. But peace doesn't last long when greed is involved. 2 weeks later, Henry's oldest son, Marcus, came to visit. It was the first time he had shown up in over a year. He walked into the house with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Dad," Marcus said, sitting down beside him. "It's been too long. How are you feeling?" Henry looked at him carefully. He knew this visit wasn't about love. It was about something else. "I'm fine," Henry said simply. "What do you want, Marcus?" Marcus hesitated. Then he leaned forward. "I heard something, Dad. A rumor. About your will." Henry didn't blink. "What about it?" "People are saying you changed it. That you left most of your money to your caregiver." Marcus's voice was tight, controlled. "Is that true?" Henry met his son's gaze without fear. "Yes, it's true." Marcus's face darkened. "Dad, you can't be serious. She's just some woman you hired. She doesn't even know you. Not like we do." Henry's jaw tightened. "You don't know me either, Marcus. You haven't visited me in over a year. You stopped calling. You treated me like I was already dead. That's not fair." "Fair." Henry's voice rose, stronger than it had been in months. "You want to talk about fair? Where were you when I couldn't get out of bed? Where were you when I cried at night because I missed your mother? Where were you when I needed my sons?" Marcus said nothing. "Hannah was here," Henry continued, his voice breaking. "Every single day. She didn't leave. She didn't forget. She loved me when no one else would." Marcus stood up, his hands clenched into fists. "This is a mistake, Dad. You're being manipulated. She's taking advantage of you." "Get out," Henry said quietly. "Dad." "Get out of my house." Marcus stared at his father for a long moment. Then he turned and left without another word. But he didn't leave quietly. Outside, he called his younger brother, David. They spoke in hushed, angry voices. And by the end of that conversation, they had made a plan. If their father wouldn't change the will, they would find another way. A darker way. Hannah had no idea what was coming. She continued caring for Henry just like always. She made him tea. She read to him. She sat with him in the evenings and listened to his stories about the life he used to live. But Henry knew. He could feel it. The danger. The anger. He had seen the look in Marcus's eyes. So one night, when Hannah was helping him into bed, he held her hand tightly. "Hannah," he said, his voice serious, "I need you to promise me something." She looked at him, concerned. "What is it?" "If anything happens to me, if my sons come for you, don't trust them. Don't let them scare you. You are protected. The will is iron-tight, but they might try to hurt you anyway." Hannah's heart raced. "Mr. Lawson, what are you talking about? What's going on?" He squeezed her hand. "Just promise me you'll be careful." She nodded slowly, fear creeping into her chest. "I promise." But promises couldn't stop what was already in motion. 2 weeks later, Marcus and David met with a man in a dark parking lot. Money was exchanged. Instructions were given. And a plan was set. They were going to make Hannah disappear. If she was gone before their father died, the inheritance would default back to them. The will wouldn't matter. She wouldn't be alive to claim it. They told themselves it wasn't personal. It was just business. Just survival. But it was murder. Plain and simple. And they were willing to do it. Hannah had no idea that she was being watched. That every move she made, every trip to the grocery store, every walk in the park, was being tracked. She had no idea that two men were waiting for the perfect moment. And that moment came sooner than anyone expected. One evening, after finishing her shift, Hannah walked to her car in the dim hospital parking lot. The air was cool. The street lights flickered. She fumbled with her keys, tired from a long day. She didn't see the van pull up behind her. She didn't hear the footsteps until it was too late. A hand grabbed her from behind. A cloth covered her mouth. She tried to scream, but the world went dark. When she woke up, she was blindfolded, her hands tied, lying on a cold concrete floor. And a voice whispered in the darkness, "You should have stayed away from our father." Hannah's heart pounded in her chest. She couldn't see anything through the blindfold, but she could hear everything. Footsteps. Whispers. The creak of a door somewhere in the distance. "Please," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Please let me go. I didn't do anything wrong." A man's voice answered, cold, emotionless. "You took what wasn't yours. Our father's money. Our inheritance. You manipulated him." "That's not true," Hannah cried. "I loved him. I cared for him when no one else would. When you left him alone." There was silence. Then another voice, softer but just as cruel. "It doesn't matter now. You're not going back. And when our father dies, everything returns to us. Just like it should have been from the start." Hannah felt tears soak into the blindfold. She thought of Henry. She thought of his kind eyes, his gentle smile, the way he held her hand when he was scared. She thought of all the moments they shared, the laughter, the stories, the love. And she prayed. Not for herself, but for him. Hours passed. Maybe days. She lost track of time. But then, something unexpected happened. One of the men guarding her, a young guy who had been paid to help, began to feel uneasy. He had listened to Hannah's quiet prayers. He had heard her crying, not for herself, but for an old man she called her father. And it broke something inside him. Late that night, when the others were asleep, he untied her hands. He pulled off her blindfold and whispered, "Go. Run. I'll tell them you escaped." She didn't wait. She ran. Through the dark woods. Through the cold night. She didn't stop until she found a road, flagged down a passing car, and begged them to take her to the police. When the authorities heard her story, they acted fast. They tracked down the location. They arrested Marcus, David, and everyone involved. The evidence was clear. Text messages, bank transfers, confessions. The sons were charged with conspiracy and attempted murder. But no one told Henry. The police and the hospital decided it was too dangerous. If Henry knew what his sons had done, the shock might kill him. So they kept it quiet. And to protect Hannah, they moved her far away, to a safe house in another city. To the world, including Henry, it looked like she had simply vanished. Henry waited for her. Every day. Every hour. He asked the nurses, "Where is Hannah? Why hasn't she come?" They didn't know what to say. So they lied. "She's sick. She'll be back soon." But days turned into weeks. And Henry stopped believing them. He grew quiet again. Withdrawn. The light that Hannah had brought into his life began to fade. He stopped eating. Stopped talking. His body grew weaker. And then one morning, he didn't wake up. His heart was still beating, but his mind was gone. The doctors called it a coma. But the nurses knew the truth. He had given up. He believed the one person who loved him had abandoned him too. For 2 long years, Henry lay in that hospital bed, unconscious, his body barely holding on. The machines kept him alive, but his soul seemed far away. Until the day the trial ended. Marcus and David were found guilty. They were sentenced to 15 years in prison. The judge called their actions a betrayal of the worst kind, not just against a kind woman, but against their own father. The news spread quickly. And finally, Hannah was told it was safe to return. She didn't hesitate. She walked into that hospital room quietly, her heart breaking at the sight of him. Henry looked so small, so frail. His hair was thinner. His skin was pale. But he was still there. She sat down beside him and took his hand, just like she always had. "I'm here, Dad," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I'm so sorry I was gone. But I'm here now. I'm not leaving you again." She leaned close and kissed his forehead. She whispered into his ear, "You matter. You are loved. You are not alone." And then something miraculous happened. Henry's breathing changed. The nurses noticed it first. His heart rate steadied. His fingers twitched slightly in her hand. One of the doctors said quietly, "It's like he knows you're here." Hannah stayed by his side every day after that. She read to him. She talked to him. She held his hand and reminded him over and over that he was loved. Slowly, his body began to respond. Not enough to wake, but enough to show he was still fighting. 2 months later, Henry opened his eyes. It was only for a few seconds. But when he saw Hannah sitting beside him, tears streaming down her face, he smiled. He couldn't speak. But he didn't need to. His eyes said everything. "Thank you. I knew you'd come back." 3 days later, Henry passed away peacefully in his sleep, Hannah's hand still in his. The funeral was small. Just a few friends. A couple of nurses. And Hannah. Marcus and David were not allowed to attend. When the will was read, there were no surprises. Everything went exactly as Henry had planned. Hannah received the house, the savings, the investments. $2.5 million. But she didn't keep it all. She used most of the money to create a foundation. One that supported elderly people who had been abandoned by their families. She funded caregiver programs. She built shelters. She made sure no one would ever feel as alone as Henry had felt. Because that's what love does. It doesn't hoard. It gives. And in doing so, she honored the man who had become her father, not by blood, but by choice. Family is not always about blood. It's about who stays. Henry's sons shared his DNA, but they abandoned him when he needed them most. Hannah had no biological connection to him, but she loved him like a daughter. Real family is built on care, loyalty, and presence, not just genetics. Greed destroys, but compassion creates. Marcus and David let greed turn them into criminals. They lost everything: their freedom, their dignity, their father's love. But Hannah's compassion created something beautiful. It gave Henry peace. It built a legacy. It changed lives. Choose kindness over greed, always. Love is the most powerful inheritance you can leave behind. Henry didn't just leave Hannah money. He left her the memory of being loved, of being seen, of mattering. And she passed that gift forward by helping others. The greatest thing you can give someone isn't wealth. It's the feeling that they are not alone in this world. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Stories like this remind us what truly matters in life. They show us that kindness is never wasted, that love always wins, and that even in the darkest moments, hope can survive. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss stories that inspire, challenge, and remind you of your own humanity. Because the world needs more people like Hannah. And maybe, after hearing this, you'll be one of them. Hit that subscribe button. Be part of a community that believes in the power of compassion. Let's keep this message alive, together. Thank you very much for watching.